when the man comes around.
Welcome to the Filmcast review of Kraven the Hunter. Really excited to talk about this one. I'm going to read the plot summary of this movie from the internet. Kraven's complex relationship with his ruthless father starts him down a path of vengeance, motivating him to become not only the greatest hunter in the world, but also one of its most feared. This movie performed disastrously at the box office this weekend. It made only about $11 million, despite costing over $110 million.
Where was that money?
This movie did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think it's the only one of these movies to be rated R, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's kind of one of these movies where they're like, whatever, man. We just don't care anymore. Those Deadpools make money? Okay. Let's try R. Yeah.
Really should have had the Venoms be the R-rated franchise, but whatever.
It's odd that they didn't go that way. But all that said, Devindra Hardawar, obviously, this Sony Marvel Spider-Verse stuff has been a mixed bag at best. Probably the only movie you could even consider calling good is the very first Venom, right?
Yeah.
But this is probably the end. So did this franchise go out with a bang or a whimper, Devindra Hardawar?
I will say this about the Sony Marvel like spin-offs for the villains. Unlike the Dark Universe, they actually made those movies. Right? The Dark Universe just threatened us with a series of movies that nobody would give a shit about. But Sony made them.
At the end of the day, it is impressive that Sony made these movies at all. You know,
it's they really committed to it. No, this is a terrible movie, but the weird thing is, I actually think this is a less worse movie than Madam Web. But that's just because it is directed by somebody I like and respect, J.C. Chandor, director of Margin Call and All's Lost and The Most Violent Year. I was like, what has happened to this guy? That was the thing that was like making me be like, okay, maybe there'll be something interesting or innovative here. I think there are actually a handful of action sequences that are vaguely enjoyable. I'm like, okay, there's like a barefoot chase through the streets of London. That's kind of fun. It's like, okay, I'm having fun with this. And then it just like scenes where people are talking to each other. Who is Kraven the Hunter? Like, what is his motivation? Because we get a setup early on, straight to him hunting people, and there's no real explanation for why he does the things he does. I actually just don't like the character in general because the word Kraven means cowardly. It sounds cool if you're a high schooler, and it rhymes with Raven, but Kraven should not be his name. His name should be Braven. Should be something else. Should be something cool. The Kraven.
They already made that movie with Jason Momoa, by the way.
This is true. His brother is the cowardly one. His brother is Kraven. His brother should be called Kraven. Is the whole But
Devindra, anyway. Different spelling.
Yeah, different spelling.
But his brother does incredible impersonations. He can't be Kraven.
Incredible impersonations. Yeah. Like he's just like the world's best. He's gonna be great at improv. That guy. But no, this movie is baffling. I think terribly written, and just a complete waste of time for everybody involved. But at least J.C. Chandor got a paycheck.
Yeah, I'm really starting to get concerned about these guys who make these movies because these Sony movies have taken relatively talented directors like J.C. Chandor, Daniel Espinosa. I actually think Daniel Espinosa is a super talented filmmaker.
He's great.
And I don't think he's made a movie in America that you can watch since Morbius. And it's like I hope these movies are not career limiting for the talented directors that kind of take them on, because that would be really unfortunate. Anyway, Devindra did not like this movie. Jeff Kanata, I'm really curious, what did you think of Kraven the Hunter?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say what I thought of Kraven the Hunter is best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Oh, let's hear it, Jeff.
A goblin who flies on a glider, or a madam with powers inside her. Like Kraven, they're villains, and I'm only willing to watch when they're fighting the spider.
Ooh. Nice.
That was good, Jeff.
That was good.
Thanks.
It was worth watching this movie just so you could make that limerick.
More effort put into that than the script for this movie. Yeah.
I agree with Devindra on everything. I also think this is less awful than some of its companion pieces. I think it's much less awful than Venom 3, for example, which we just talked about. I think Venom 3 is offensively bad. And this movie is just bland. Right?
There
This
are
movie
some
is
offensively bad scenes within this movie,
true,
but not as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the barefoot versus car action sequence,
It's
fun.
Yeah.
From just sort of a conceptual place, like the audacity of doing a scene like that.
All
and
he
then,
can do is run fast and jump. He can't fly, right?
Yeah.
So,
but he's still got to get that car.
Yeah.
It's like a dog getting a car. I also have a sort of bigger issue with all of this because it's just taking some sort of vague concepts from what these characters kind of are and slapping them into situations that are completely different spiritually from what the characters, right? I mean, the biggest problem with all of these movies is these are villains that exist to be the antagonist to a hero, and somehow now we're transforming them into something they were never intended to be and really aren't interesting enough to be, right?
Yeah.
And and so you have to really want that. You have to really want Kraven the Hunter to be the hero of a story, and I don't think anybody does. And so they do such heavy lifting to get you to try to care for this character, when what is interesting about Kraven the Hunter as a character historically is the dude wants to kill Spider-Man. Like that's his defining principle, right?
They kind of all do is the thing.
He wants to kill Spider-Man real bad. He wants to kill Spider-Man.
The one prey I cannot catch.
That's right. Hey, we have a vaguely animal-esque thing, and he's the guy that kills animal things, right? And he wants to kill the most dangerous animal thing.
A lot of missed opportunities to set him up to, like, just squashing spiders. Ooh, really hate spiders.
Well, there is a spider. There is a very overt spider sequence in the movie that I was like, okay, movie, I get what you're doing, and I think this was kind of clever, maybe, but also I feel like on some level somebody was like, this is our last one, right? Because they just throw all of the characters that they have lying around into it. Like he's a spider villain, and we have other spider villains who are his villains now too. Which
true.
Sort of I don't want to spoil. I mean, I guess is it obvious?
Let's wait till the spoilers.
Okay.
Wait till the spoilers.
And the Spider-Man
villains you have been waiting to see on screen, all of them in here.
The spider villain that's his villain is also an animal, but there's nothing made of the fact that he's a hunter and that person is something that hunters actually hunt. Nothing made about that, which is a weird whiff to me because it's right there. You have that laid out for you. But how all of that plays out is so cumbersome and lame and uninteresting. I mean, I think there are a couple of actors who are really trying. Alessandro Nivola, it like understands the movie he's in and is just going for it, and I give him credit. But like everybody, I mean, Russell Crowe's in this movie.
Russell Crowe's
there are multiple Academy Award-winning actors in this movie. Ariana DeBose is in this film.
She plays a character again from the comics that is just not remotely, and again, a very problematic character from the comics, and they try to, sand off some of those rough edges. But like, why are we even? What are we doing? Christopher Abbott is in this movie as yet another spider villain who makes no sense why he's here. It's just like we have all these things we paid for. Let's put him in. Why not? We'll throw him in the movie.
Put him in.
It is, again, not as offensively bad as, for example, Venom 3, which I thought just is so dumb, relentlessly dumb that it made me angry. I can't even muster up any emotion for this because, yes, there are some dumb things that happen. Yes, there are some clumsy script things, but like it's mostly just bland and forgettable. And again, I think most people recognize that, which is why very few people went to see it. It was never worth making, and it feels like a cash grab, and there's no cash to be grabbed. So it's completely forgettable. We'll forget it instantly. And if they do a Kraven, if you want to see an awesome Kraven the Hunter, play the latest Sony video game. It has an
Spider-Man
awesome
2.
version of Kraven in it.
I would disagree with that. I think actually they're both bad.
No.
I thought it's definitely more true to the comics.
Yes.
Certainly that version is. But my guess is Sony forced them to put that in there, or they made some deal to put that in there.
I doubt that.
Because in my opinion, well, these things were supposed to come out at the same time, right? Kraven was supposed to come out.
He bears no resemblance to the movie version.
That's true. Yeah.
In fact, it makes the movie version look worse in my opinion, because the video game version is actually cool and interesting, and a hunter like this dude. They use the term hunter to mean sort of an assassin.
Right.
But no, what's interesting is that he's an actual big game hunter. Like that's the defining characteristic is like
right.
He has this code of honor and he wants to actually be the best hunter he can be. None of that is present in this movie. This movie, he's like, I was trained to be a hunter by my dad, and so now I use that to assassinate bad people.
Also, screw my dad. Yeah,
a completely different situation. It's not even the same story.
I would say if you take this movie, you show it to somebody watching Kick-Ass 1, you're like, Kick-Ass? It's going to turn into Kraven the Hunter. The transformation, we've talked about this, that Aaron Taylor Johnson has gone through is mind-blowing.
Kudos to him.
Props to him. This movie does show it off a
Dude
lot.
Did some friggin' sit-ups, you know what I'm saying?
But he's been doing that for a while, too. So, yeah.
Well, guys, it will not surprise you to learn that I did not enjoy this movie very much. I
was really expecting you to, I don't know.
Zag when we were zigging.
Had some surprises this year.
So
Dave was going to get on and be like, Russell Crowe saves this movie.
I mean, I think Russell Crowe is actually pretty solid in this movie.
He's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This movie is actually kind of interesting to me because I think Kraven and Venom 3 and to some degree Madam Web, they all suffer from similar problems. And I think one of the big problems is, first of all, they all feel edited to within an inch of their lives. And what I mean, like, let me define what I mean by that. All those movies introduce more threads than they can actually pay off.
More threads. In the case of what you're doing. Yeah.
In the case of Kraven the Hunter, it's like they're introducing like a new character every 10 minutes in this movie, right? As you said, there's like, oh, now Christopher Abbott's a character in this film, and now Ariana DeBose is a character, and now like all the, and it's like, do we really need all these characters? You know, the movies. This is, by the way, the longest Spider-Verse movie. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes. We're not counting any of the animated, Beyond the Spider-Verse things in this.
The ones that have actual Spider-Verse in the title.
the one that actually has Spider-Verse in the title and are actually really good. I was watching this scene in Kraven the Hunter where Kraven is chasing after a car. And I made a realization during this scene about like what is wrong with these movies. So Kraven's chasing after a car, and there's actually some really cool moments in that sequence because
a lot of practical work in that.
I gotta say, whenever I see dude running as fast as fast moving object, I think that's impressive. Like when Superman does it, when other I'm just like, oh wow, that's cool. When Planet of the Apes does it, I'm like, wow, that's cool how they did that, right? And there is a scene where essentially like this car is trying to get away from Kraven, and I don't remember exactly what happens, but they kind of like get him off their trail. They like drive into it, they smash him, the car smashes against him, and he like falls over, and the car gets away, right?
Well, it's not the end of that whole scene, but
and then literally the next scene, like 1 or 2 shots later, the car is at a dock. At its destination at this helipad, and then Kraven shows up.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm here. I'm gonna take you down, car again. And I'm like this action scene, I think, sums up everything wrong with these films because in a normal movie, right? You'd have there's like cadence to these action scenes. There's like an ebb and a flow. There's like, oh, intense, and then like a minute to take your breath, and then another thing happened, and then and in this movie, right, it's like Kraven is fighting the car, and then Kraven is bested, and then literally no more than, I'm gonna say, 15 seconds later, they're at it again. Kraven's at the dock, and there's no sort of downtime. There's no like cadence. There's just like, oh, do we need the scene where the car is like slowly getting away, and then people take a breath, and the people in the car think they're okay, and then all of a sudden Kraven shows up out of nowhere, and it's a big surprise. It's like, we don't need any of that. Just get to the action. Just get to the thing that's going on. And I feel like that's true of a lot of these Spider-Verse movies, is they just edit out all the interstitial stuff, all the in-between stuff, the people hanging out, the sort of less energetic scenes in the action set pieces. Like, all these things are removed, and what ends up making the movie feel like a trailer for itself. It ends up feeling like we're just watching the highlight reel of whatever this movie is supposed to be. And it's a very bizarre experience, because most movies aren't like this.
I think for me, like, a better example of this phenomenon is the fact that Kraven has, like, on demand, his own like personal cargo plane, like a friend who like flies a cargo plane.
Right.
He says hi to her.
He says hi to her, and it's
like who that person is. They just
Or
like
why
talk
that
over
exists.
the headset.
Yeah.
That feels like a video game. Like that feels like, oh, there's just a robot driving this, because it's not a person
he's like,
that he has a relationship with.
See you in the next one, and then
Who are you?
like,
What's your story?
Do people hire the Kraven
the
hunter?
Is this an app?
What is going on exactly?
Yeah. And that's another thing that's a big problem with this movie is, you brought this up, Jeff, which is that these movies are about these villains, but in order to make a movie about a character in a conventional way, the character needs to do something that the audience can root for.
But I think that's a huge mistake. I think there is a world where you could have actually made a movie about a villain where they're still the villain. And I think that would be a really interesting movie. And you don't have to like shoehorn hero into a villain movie. It's weird, and it seems incongruous and off-putting, and also
and
really
you need to change everything people understand about that character, right?
That's right. And it's really and it becomes very formulaic at the same time. Whereas, what if the challenge is make a movie about this horrible person? Like, what is that? A movie about the villain when the hero never shows up to save the day. Yeah. That seems like an interesting movie.
You want Mike Lee's hard truths about Kraven. Just terrible person.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it doesn't have to, I still think it could be a PG-13 action movie, but like it seems to me to be, it's basically Godzilla, right? Except on a smaller scale. It's a movie of, they turned Godzilla
into a good guy. Yeah,
that's the problem, is that they feel the need to do that instead of actually making it a more interesting endeavor. Like put us in, make it The Sopranos, make
Jeff,
it
make it The Sopranos. Have you seen all of the Penguin?
Right,
because that is what that show is.
It's
terrible
possible.
Guy being terrible.
Possible.
Yeah. That's actually what they did. Yeah, that's actually what they did. Yeah. And they did a good job with it. So, Sony should start taking some notes from the DC folks and what Matt Reeves is doing over in that universe.
I'm telling you.
Anyway,
Marvel seems to be good with the heroes, and DC seems to be good with the villains.
Yeah.
Joker notwithstanding.
And Sony seems to be good with the animated Spider-Man movies. All right.
Yeah.
A few thoughts on what went wrong with Kraven. Of course, we got to talk about some spoilers starting right now. Let's get to spoilers for Kraven the Hunter starting right now. So, Jeff, you were talking about Chameleon, right? Like, Kraven's brother is Chameleon. I don't think that's canonical, by the way.
It is canonical.
Oh, it is canonical. Okay,
half brother in the comics.
I see.
Half brother is a chameleon. Yeah,
I see.
And they say he is the bastard child, basically, in this movie.
So right, but you bring up the point of like, so is the idea that Kraven and Spider-Man would like team up against him, right? But that feels like we didn't even get Kraven and Spider-Man facing off against each other, right?
Right.
It's weird.
It makes no sense.
I gotta say that I actually liked the Alessandro Nivolo Alessandro Nivola,
Mhm.
Rhino.
like Rhino, and like how that affliction manifests itself.
Mhm,
The idea that
mhm.
he has this like thing hooked up to him the whole time, and then when he disconnects it, he starts like solidifying. That was cool. And then you get to the ending sequence where he faces off against Rhino, and it looks terrible.
God
unfortunately.
Well,
awful.
also, like, why does he have horns?
Why does he have horns?
Mhm.
There's a lot of
Because his
choices.
name's Rhino?
Yeah.
Yeah, like because they never. Then it was just like considered a disease. It wasn't like he had
Yeah.
his DNA crossed with an animal
He
DNA.
wanted to
or
be
Which is
tough,
the
man.
easiest line in the world to throw in the movie. Like, the only way we did it was to cross your DNA with a rhino. Oh, okay, that's why I'm called the Rhino. But no, we laboriously explain why he's called the Rhino, and it has nothing to do with being an actual rhino.
Mhm,
And then he
mhm.
looks like a rhino at the end.
I
Yeah,
feel really bad for the villains in this movie, guys, because first of all, Alessandro Nivola, an actor I often like, they just like they had made choices relate to his character, right? Like you got to wear tight shirts, you got to have this itty bitty backpack, always
Yeah.
tight shirts, itty bitty backpack. Okay,
I actually kinda
look.
like
That's what
that.
you're
He
going
looked-
for.
Yeah.
He looked like a little schoolboy.
He
who
looked
had-
like a little schoolboy.
Yeah.
And then
But
he
the-
sounds like a whiny little bastard the entire
Yeah.
time too, like just a whiny little
Well,
shit.
The,
Oh,
the
man.
bigger transgression is his wig in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that was very bad.
But I mean, he bears no resemblance to any version of the Rhino that has ever been.
Again,
Right? The Rhino is a big
yeah.
lunkhead
Mhm.
dummy
Mhm.
who was a henchman, a Russian henchman,
Man.
who had this experiment done on him and got fused with his suit. But now he's like the mastermind.
Now he's
the
a
smartest
mastermind.
guy in the room.
He shouldn't have a brain. The entire point is that he doesn't kind of have a brain. Shout out to the one good thing from the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, Paul Giamatti being the Rhino for 5 seconds and
Yeah.
just like giving us an Oscar level performance. That's Paul Giamatti
That's the Rhino.
sold that role.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question. Christopher Abbott plays a character called the Foreigner.
Yeah.
Tell me what he is able to do. Tell me what his situation is from a conceptual level.
Right.
Like, what is that character?
His
My
situation.
interpretation
Uh-huh.
is he's able to stop time in people's minds. Like he's able to make them freeze while
Right.
he
He
moves
makes eye
around.
contact.
And
right?
it's a superhuman ability. Is that what you're?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess
Yeah.
my take is that they took a really compelling actor who is about to break at any moment and shoved him into a third tier villain role in a movie that everybody hates. My take is that made me sad when Christopher Abbott walked on screen, and I'm like, God damn, you deserve better than this, Christopher Abbott.
Well,
Like you
Devindra
deserve so
is
much more.
correct.
Yeah.
But Dave, I mean, that's what the movie is communicating.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, stopping the time is kind of right. He puts people into hypnosis.
Mhm.
That is he has no superhuman abilities, at least in
I
the
see.
comics. Who knows what the hell they're trying to do here? But in the comics, he is able to hypnotize you
Mhm.
and make you think that he is moving faster than you can see. But here it does seem like he is. There's literally no explanation for any of the shit he does. In
Doesn't
this
he
movie.
takes off his glasses? That's all you need to know.
Yeah, he just goes 1, 2, 3. But the idea behind this character is that
Right.
he hypnotizes you and convinces you that you can't see him.
Mhm.
So,
Question for you guys: who did it better, Christopher Abbott in this movie or Colin Farrell in Daredevil? Like sub-tier Spider-Man villains are basically
Yeah.
like villains in that universe. I have an affinity for the Colin Farrell.
I totally forgot
Bullseye.
Colin Farrell played Bullseye. I completely
he
forgot.
did. He says it all the time, Jeff. He made an old lady choke, and he's like Bullseye. He says it out loud.
Is the Foreigner white in the comics? I'm just curious about that. Like,
I mean, I think so.
'cause that was a little odd to me.
A little confusing.
remember
That was a little
correctly.
confusing that he's called the Foreigner and he's
Yeah.
Christopher Abbott in the movie.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, I think
yeah.
the Foreigner is white because he was introduced in like the early '80s, and so there was no,
He's Eastern European, very foreign.
yeah.
yeah.
And of course, Calypso is in this movie as yet another
Okay.
character
So
they had on
I
him.
got to talk
Mhm.
about this. This movie is really bizarre too because I find all these movies fascinating, like these Spider-Man movies fascinating. I wish we had a behind the scenes of what went down for each of these, because this movie feels like a PG-13 movie that was converted into a rated R film. I don't know why they converted it. I don't think it was worth it. Maybe they tried to make it PG-13 and there's too much killing, and so they're like, okay, well, we might as well make it rated R. But everything about the way the action is shot makes it feel PG-13. Right down to the fact that you may be aware that in PG-13 movies, you are allowed to say the F word one time. And it cannot be referenced to the sexual act.
Right.
And this movie has one F word.
I thought it had two. I think it has two.
Oh, it might have two. Yeah, maybe they were like, we might as well let this loose.
Yes, let's do this. Let it ride.
But Jeff, I think you know what the one was supposed to have been if it was PG-13.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Which is when Ariana DeBose kills the foreigner.
Yeah.
Right? Because they explained that she's good at shooting arrows.
Yeah.
In the prior
she did some archery in school, in grade school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she's like, 3 motherfucker. And it's like, okay. And I'm like, that's the F word that was going to be
the one F word for
the
PG-13. Yeah.
You're not Blade, man. If you save that for Blade, basically.
Yeah, but maybe they're like, at some point they made the decision, let's just do it rated R. Oh, can we squeeze in any more F words? Yeah, we got like 1 or 2 more we can like fit in there. But it doesn't feel like architected from the ground up as an action movie.
I think as an R movie, I should say. They throw Russell Crowe the opportunity to use an F word at one point, and he's like, "Fucker." Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Russell Crowe for being he's a larger man now. He's a rotund man. He has a large stomach. This is a problem I'm also starting to deal with as I age. Still a movie star. Still can hold that screen with his terrible Russian accent, but holding the screen. The gravity of the screen is on Russell Crowe when there's so much working against him right now. So love him. Love him for that.
He owns it. He owns it. Size.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Any other thoughts on Kraven the Hunter? If not, I want to read this.
What's up with the post credits?
Yeah,
I've heard about that.
I need to read this very important article from Alex Zalbin over at Comic Book Club at comicbookclublive.com. Who he wrote an article called "Does Kraven the Hunter Have an End Credit Scene?" And I got to say, guys, this is like really important coverage that he wrote here. Okay, so here's this article. I'm going to read excerpts from it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but. The answer to this question? No, there is no end credit scene in Kraven the Hunter. Or is there? There actually is something after the credits of Kraven the Hunter. Let's get into it. So, what happens after the credits of Kraven the Hunter? The post-credits for Kraven the Hunter explained, right? That's the headline. As soon as the credits finished on the movie, 2 guys came into the theater to clean things up. Nothing against them. There wasn't a lot to clean up, since there's only 6 of us watching this movie at 2 p.m. Eastern on a Thursday. I buttoned up my coat and walked outside. The air had a snappy chill to it, and I could see the bus 2 blocks away. I was out of the movie theater. I was about to go home, and other than knowing I was going to write an article titled "Does Kraven the Hunter Have an End Credit Scene?" I knew that very soon I would never have to think about Kraven the Hunter ever again. So when you ask me what is after the credits for Kraven the Hunter, life, my friend. The rest of your goddamn life. Free from the shackles of watching an excruciatingly boring slog of a movie. And perhaps, if we're lucky, the other thing you'll find after the credits of Kraven the Hunter is no more Sony/Marvel movies. No more nonsensical plots. No more setups for future characters nobody cares about in movies that will go nowhere. And no more attempts to force a superhero universe out of the concept of what if animal blood fell inside of a person and also there were some spiders around sometimes. Freedom. That's what waits after the credits for Kraven the Hunter. Pure, beautiful freedom. End quote.
It's lovely.
It's lovely. It's moving. It's powerful.
I was so happy to find out that there was no end credit scene because I left this theater so goddamn quickly. And I was at a press screening and I zipped out of this and every other person sat there waiting. And I was a
cartoon cloud. You remember Looney Tunes when you just like zip out in the shape of a person running away? I found I was at a theater I don't normally go to. I found the nearest exit. Normally like sometimes theaters will have the side exits or you can walk through the front and go back out. I was like, no, I gotta leave. I must leave this space. It is 1 a.m. coming out of Kraven the Hunter.
Wow.
I must leave. I went out the nearest store I could find. Didn't know where that door was actually, where it was like actually leading. I just knew it was outside. Freedom. Yes.
My co-host on DLC, Christian Spicer, told me he read a review of Kraven the Hunter that I think sums it up. And it said, it's the story of a man who gets a vest.
That's true. He
It's
does
true.
get the vest by the
His
end
The
of the
process
movie.
of a
superpower-
man getting a vest.
Final shot is sitting sexy with the vest. You can't just sit. You got to like lean back, pretend you're on
He's
the
got a
GQ
vest.
cover. Yeah.
It's a hell of a vest.
Hell of a vest. Hell of a, chest to show off and pecs to show off and abs
Yeah.
to show off. So yes, I get it.
I mean, I think this project was actually doomed from the start because if there's anything the last 2 weeks have shown us, it's that America cannot get behind a beautiful man who has great muscles and abs assassinating rich people that the justice system doesn't bring to justice.
We would know what to do with him. Yeah.
America wouldn't know. So therefore, why would you ever make this movie? Like no
Yeah.
one's going to understand how to root for a character like that. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it is impressive that J.C. Chandor made a movie.
I'm
And
glad
it's
somebody
impressive that
paid him money.
Sony was able
Yeah.
to stretch this premise out to as many movies as they did. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.